Well, hello there, and thank you ever so much for joining me on this training. I'm really excited to have you here. I hope you're excited as well, because over the next 12 weeks, we're going to be covering loads and loads of things to really get you your ideal clients and get them buying from you consistently, building in place a consistent system for you, which you can literally turn on and off whenever you want to. Okay, so today, obviously, we're covering week one and we're going to be talking about building your perfect list. Now, throughout this section of the training, I'm going to be giving you an overview of lots of things, but there are also two other videos that you can see underneath this one with some further training on, and that is specifically about LinkedIn and how to get your connections through LinkedIn. Okay, so go and view those at a separate time. We're going to be referring to this in this part of the training, but keep those separate, so go and review them after you've done this one. Okay, so what are the aims of today? So there are really 5 different aims, and firstly I want to take you through the system and what we're trying to achieve by it so that you've got some understanding there. We're also going to be identifying your ideal clients on this training, and then we're going to be talking about how to put a list together of your ideal potential clients. We're also going to be talking a little bit about mindset today, so about getting people to actually rule themselves out talking to you, because actually you don't want to be talking to everyone. You only want to be really talking to people who are interested in what your business does and actually want to start talking to you further and more seriously about buying from you as a client. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you have any questions or anything, what I will do at the end of this training is show you how to ask those questions. And so let's get going. Okay, so why this training? So why are we talking specifically about getting leads and more clients? Because I want to tell you a little bit about my business here at this point. And I used to I've been in business now for just over 14 years, and when I first started, I used to have lots of meetings booked into the diary. So this is one of my really old diaries, and you can see here how many meetings I kind of used to have booked into the diary. It's just, it looks great, doesn't it? It looks fantastic. There's lots of meetings in there. But the problem I found, I used to go out to different meetings all the time. Every week I used to have kind of 8 or 9 meetings booked into the diary at any one time, and I was like, whoa, this is great, this is exactly what I wanted. But the problem I found is that they weren't turning into clients. So I used to be running all over the country. Sometimes it used to take me an hour and a half to get to a meeting, or even 2 hours sometimes, and it was just a bit ridiculous really, because I used to go there, we used to have a nice chat. We used to promise each other the world. Of course, we'll refer clients to each other, no problem at all. Even though we've just met each other and know nothing really about each other, of course, we're going to refer our best people to each other. So all those promises were made, but nothing ever really used to happen. So my conversion rate, in other words, how many people actually turned into clients, was really, really low. Now, I don't know what your percentage of people you actually turn into a client is at the moment, and we're going to be talking about that in later training sessions. But what I basically mean by conversion rate is, if I gave you 10 potential leads right now and you went down to see all of them, you wrote all of them a proposal, how many of those would you turn into a paying client or paying customer? Now, I can tell you now from speaking to my clients, most of them would consider sort of 30 to 40% good. In other words, 3 or 4 out of 10 they would consider really good. My conversion rate, so the amount of people I would turn into clients out of 10 meetings that I went to, was kind of about 1%. So in other words, 1 out of every 10 would turn into a client, and that just wasn't good enough for me at all. I can tell you now my conversion rate is 8 or 9 out of 10, and there's a specific reason for that, because I changed some things. So if your conversion rates are hovering around 30 to 50%, that's okay. It's going to get a lot better as a result of doing this training. So what happened? Well, I came across a book called Sales on a Beer Mat by a guy called Mike Southern. Now, don't bother buying the book, don't go rushing out to buy it, because I'm going to tell you the 2 most useful bits of information that are in the book and how we're going to apply them here. So but the two bits of really useful information changed the way I completely did things. The rest of the book really, honestly, isn't worth the money, but these are the two most vital things. So, firstly, he said that there's the ABC of selling, and the ABC stood for always be closing. In other words, if someone says yes to something small, in other words, booking a meeting with you or something like that, they're more likely to say yes later on down the line. But the most useful bit of information I got from that book was the idea about a 15-minute phone call with people. And he basically argues don't ever go and see someone until you've had a chat with them on the phone to see whether or not there's something there. Now, I have to say, this blew me away, this piece of advice back in those days. It was a real eye opener for me, and it may well be for you listening to this at the moment, because I used to go out to anyone who wanted a meeting without really thinking about whether or not they were a potential client. Um, and I stopped doing that. So now my policy, and this was probably about year two, so for the last 12 years or so, I never ever go out and see a potential client until I've had a chat with them on the phone. Even if they email me and say, I want to talk to you about lead generation or whatever they want to talk about. I would never ever go out to see a client unless I've had that initial conversation with them on the phone, because I want to see how interested they really are. Okay, and it really changed the way that I saw meetings and things like that. We're going to talk more about that 15-minute call and what's involved in it in future training sessions, but suffice to say, the other thing that I do when I'm on those 15-minute calls, or sometimes they're 30-minute calls, is I always quote a price to them now as well. So, if they fall over, because you can literally hear them falling over sometimes, I kind of know it's not a client for me. But that's something I've developed over time, and that's given me more confidence to state my prices and things like that. But we'll talk more about that as we go on. What I want you to get from right now, though, and if you take nothing else away from this part of the training, I want you to get the idea that we're going to be having conversations with people over the phone initially before we ever go out and see anyone. Okay, and this is a really mindset attitude shift. Um, and on the later training, I'm going to show you how to get people to not only accept this 15-minute call from you, but actually wanting you to call them. And when you call them, they're expecting your call. They know who you are. They're interested in talking further to you. So it's a really warm conversation. So I'm going to show you how to do that later on. Okay, so we're going to move quite fast through this training. We've got a lot to cover today, and you're going to need to take some notes. So this training is yours for lifetime of the training. So if you want to come back to it and listen again, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. So feel free to take lots of notes though. Okay. The other thing, which is kind of a mindset shift as well, is this idea of a process of elimination, because I want you to kind of understand from now that not everyone you speak to or not everyone you come into contact with is going to be a buyer for you. So if you look at this kind of chart here, you can see only the top little triangle there are buyers, and they're really interested and they will buy from you. The rest have varying degrees of interest. So they may go down into kind of watching what you're doing. They may be interested. They may buy at some point in the future, but they're not as hot as those buyers right now. So I guess if we were to label those watchers, we'd probably call them hot prospects. Might be interested in the future, but not right now. Then underneath that, we've got an awareness category. So they're aware of you. They may be watching what you're doing again, but they, again, are not as warm as those as watchers and buyers. So they may buy from you. They may not buy. It may be something you put out there that they think, oh, that's really interesting. I want to find out more about that particular thing. And then you've got a category of they're kind of not interested. They may stay on your list and perhaps receive the occasional information from you, occasional email from you, but they probably won't buy. And then there's a category of people who just don't like what you do, I'm afraid. They're not interested in you. They'll probably unsubscribe. They're the type of people who, when your name comes up in conversation at a networking event or something like that, they may go, ooh, don't like them. Don't worry about them. Actually, you want to get them off your list as quickly as possible. So they're not interested in the people who don't like you. Don't worry about at all. The people who are aware of you, kind of let them sit in the background. But what we're interested in is the watchers, so the kind of hot prospects, and the buyers, the people who kind of are more interested in talking to you seriously about your products and services. Okay, can you see by looking at that chart that the watchers and the buyers are only actually a very small percentage of everyone you're going to come into contact with? Okay, I'll tell you a little story actually, because I went out to see a potential client the other day who subsequently has become a client. But he was telling me a quick story. He does health and safety, and he was telling me a quick story that he'd been contacted by a hotel that he worked for, and went all the way down to London to see them, and had loads of conversations with them. And he was thinking, oh, they're really interested in the kind of watcher buyer category. But it turns out that they weren't interested at all. They were actually after a bit of business themselves, and if they won that business, then they would have brought the health and safety chap on. So actually, they were kind of probably in the awareness category. They may or may not buy, depending on what happens to them. So they weren't as hot as he thought they were. So it's worthwhile kind of bearing this in mind whenever you're talking to people, and mentally or physically. And I'll show you ways to kind of capture data as we go through this training. Kind of be aware of where they are in the process. We're going to talk later about a buying cycle as well, which goes into this in a bit more depth and taking people through that process. But for now, just be aware that not everyone you speak to is going to buy from you, okay? And if they're not going to buy from you, you need to identify that early and quickly, and then get them off your list as soon as possible. Because to be honest, you haven't got a lot of time, have you? So we want to make sure that you're talking to people who are actually really interested and looking to take things further. Now, even though they may be interested, they might not be quite ready to buy right now. But if you sense that there's something there and later on they're going to buy from you, then it's absolutely worthwhile keeping in contact with them, etc. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Just bear in mind for now that not everyone you speak to is going to buy. Right then, so let's talk about who your clients are. Now, you probably, if you've come across any source of marketing, you've probably been told to do a client profile. And as a marketer, I'm going to tell you it's really boring to do that, isn't it? So I'm going to tell you the less boring way of doing this. So the less boring way of doing this is it's time to get really selfish now. And I want you to think about, who do you want to work with? So get really specific here. And again, it's a mindset issue, because if you don't have a lot of clients at the moment, your temptation is to work with everyone and anyone. But you can't do that because you don't have the time to do that. So some of the things that are on my selfish, grumpy list are: they must have the money to work with me. I've got to like them and want to work with them, because it's the worst thing in the world if you get a phone call from them and you think, oh, I don't want to speak to that person. Okay. They must want their marketing to be implemented. They must be a business owner who's doing well but looking to take their business to the next level. Those are some of my criteria. So I tend to like working with the managing director or business owner, because we tend to get more done if we do that. So I'm quite specific about who I want to work with, and it's good to set some expectations about this. And I'm sort of going to give you an example of an email that I received quite recently from someone, and I just want to show you why this is not a good client for me. So this email says, basically, another contact of mine told me about what you do, and I'm very interested in finding out more. I'm trying to get myself out there with my holistic business, but do not have much energy to focus on it after a hard day in my Joe Boggs full-time job. I've created 4 different Twitter accounts to time with my conditions my work can help with, and I've attempted to create a business page via Facebook, and I'm trying to make friends with Hootsuite. I do not have a lot of disposable income. Okay. Now, so at this point, I'm kind of thinking, okay, bit of a red flag. So I have to be careful with any outside help I take on. I have a website which I've made, which I want to marry up with my social media and written articles. I'm not pulling this together right though. I'm rather fed up in being locked out of Twitter, and therefore think it's time for me to admit my limitations and ask for some help. I've joined a couple of free trials on Hootsuite, so I sort of something in place, sort of. My business has been in the back burner since 1999 for a whole bunch of reasons, but now I want my holistic business to take over from Joe Blog so I can work whenever I want, how I want. I'm also interested in selling products on the web. Could we talk sometime, please? So bearing in mind my criteria that I've just mentioned about they must have money to work with me, must want their marketing to be implemented, must be a growing business. Does that kind of sound like the right sort of client for me? So they are telling me I'm interested and they're telling me I want to know more about what your business does, but it's not really an ideal client. So I think one of the assignments I'm going to give you to start off with is just to spend 15 minutes outlining who you really want to work with. Get selfish, get grumpy, and really specific here. Now, after you've done this exercise, I want you to be aware of the fact that you can either take people on who fall into your criteria, and that's your choice, or you can take people on who don't fall into your criteria, and that is again your choice as well. And I can tell you though, if I do that, so I take on someone that doesn't really fit, all I know is that I'm asking for trouble, and that's when you get clients who don't really pay, don't really just a pain to work with. They're the ones you don't like picking up the phone for. They're really demanding. They want everything for £5.50. You get the picture. Okay, so it's really worthwhile. And this is a different way of doing an exercise on who your clients, isn't it? It's not kind of writing down, I work with men 40 to 45 or whatever it is who read this magazine or whatever. This exercise is about thinking about who you want to work with and what's your criteria for working with them. This is a little bit about setting boundaries as well. So, it is essential now for my clients to be able to pay me. Now, we're in the fortunate position now, 14 years in, where we don't have problem clients. So it's really, really rare that we have problem clients because we tend to be quite specific and pick and choose who we like to work with now. Okay, so let's look a bit more about how we're going to find these then. So once you've started to identify who you want to work with, there's 3 quick and easy ways of finding clients. So first one is existing clients and existing contacts. And again, this is a bit of a mindset shift as well. There's lots of mindset in this one, isn't there? This particular training, because I want to set some expectations going forward, and I want you to start thinking a little bit differently about things. Now, I can tell you now, the temptation I hear from a lot of people is I want to get new clients, I want to get new business through the door. But there's a lot of evidence to show that working with your existing clients or existing contacts, people that you already are aware of, is a lot easier to get them on board and get them in through the door. And towards the end, I've got a little exercise for you that I want you to try over the next week to get some clients coming in straight away. And trust me, it's much easier to go from people who already kind of know you than to someone who doesn't know you at all, and you're having to do the hard work of starting to build that relationship with them first. Second place to look is who you already know. So who's not a client that you know, but maybe a contact that you really love to work with, someone you worked with in the past, someone you worked with at an old organisation. Don't call them this afternoon, tell them that, just for the moment. Just hold on a second because I'm going to show you how to contact these people. But again, you may have, might have been one of the first exercises that you did when you first started your business, go through your old contacts and kind of see who you already know, who you might be able to get some work from. But when was the last time you did that? So is it worth revisiting and going through again? And then obviously the third area is new potential clients that meet your criteria. And on the other 2 training videos on week 1, I'm going to show you how to do that specifically. So how to write a connection message and then how to start connecting with people on LinkedIn. So the next thing I want you to do is kind of start being aware of who might be a potential client for you. This is not about going through your contacts unless you want to, but start being mindful of people you've come across or people that you know. Some names may already be springing to mind. Just get those written down because we're going to want to start thinking about contacting them. Okay. So for this training, we're going to focus on those 15-minute chats. And why we're going to do that? Well, there's a lot of evidence, believe me, to show that they're time saving. Trust me, the amount of times I've had conversations with people that I thought, this has just taken me 15 minutes to do. I would have spent 3, 4, 5 hours round trip doing that. So it's very, very much time saving. You can definitely rule people out. You can check out whether they're interested or not interested very quickly. They will turn into meetings for you, I promise. And you can also use these 15-minute chats to practice on. So our model basically is this. So we're going to identify a potential client. We're going to invite them in a couple of ways to have a chat on the phone. Now, there are two options for them here. Either they can say, yes, please, in which case you have a chat with them on the phone. And then if there is something there, so carrying on going down the yes path here, then you meet up, you send the proposal, etc., etc. If you have a chat with them on the phone but there's nothing there, that's fine. They then go over to the no side and we keep in touch with them. There might be something there in the future. And again, if we meet up with them and they say no, we can just keep in touch with them and we can perhaps offer them something at a later date. And then the other scenario is that you invite them to have a chat and they say no, in which case we keep in contact with them as well. Okay, so that's basically our model. That's just our process. And that's something I want you to keep in mind as we go through this training, because that's how we're going to teach you to do this and to get results really, really quickly. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, had a little exercise for you to do with your past contacts. So what I want you to do this week is start identifying who might be a potential contact for you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a client. It could be just someone you want to practice having a 15-minute conversation with on the phone. But I want you to reach out to them. And all we're going to do is send them a very simple email that you can also download in the handouts too. But basically all it says is, hi, hope you're well. Been a while since I saw you or spoke to you. You can change that accordingly. Wonder if you'd like to catch up on the phone and see what your plans are for this year. Let me know if you'd like to do this and hopefully we can get something in the diary. Really, really simple, really, really quick. If you don't like that email, feel free to change it. I can give you other examples if you want me to as well. But I use this sort of thing a lot. And do you know what? Some people don't reply, others do. But what I want you to try and do is reach out to at least 5 past or existing customers, contacts, anyone you know, and send them something like this and just see what comes back. Hopefully we can get you having some chats by the end of this week with a few people. Okay, the other thing I want you to do this week is start searching on LinkedIn. And if you watch the other 2 training videos, you'll see we talk you through writing a connection message, searching on LinkedIn, and I want you to find at least 20 potential contacts on there and connect with those people, please. So quite simple this week, so this is all about digging out your old contacts. This is all about going through who you already know. And we're going to start teaching you how to search on LinkedIn as well and start getting some potential contacts there. So now it's your turn. So this is your actions for this week. So create a profile of your ideal client. These are people you want to work with. So be grumpy, be selfish. Think about who you really would love to work with. Start going through your existing contacts and reaching out to 5 existing contacts or clients with the past client email. Review the process and make sure you understand it, and then start searching on LinkedIn for some new contacts that meet your criteria. And if you can, find at least 20 of them. Okay, so said to you at the beginning, I tell you how to ask questions. So you have some email support with this training. It's not unlimited, i.e., don't expect me to answer your email at 3 o'clock in the morning because I certainly won't be awake. Okay, but within reason, we will help you. I mean, obviously, we have had people in the past who slightly abused this. I'm a little bit more stricter now. So if I received, emails from you every single day, or I receive emails more than once a day, I probably will be scaling you back a little bit, but kind of once a week is absolutely fine. So if you've got any questions and want to run anything past me, please do send me an email to helen.dowling@exceptionalthinking.co.uk, and either me or one of my team will come back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so it's your turn now. I'm going to hand over to you. There are handouts that you can download summarising what we've talked about here, and review the other two training videos as well. And let's get you cracking on getting some new clients. Okay, look forward to hearing how you're getting on. Take care.